everyone, welcome. My name is Charlie, and today I'm going to be playing 100 Days in Stardew Valley. But I'm not just going to be playing casually because I think that would be super boring, so I've decided to set some goals for myself as I do this playthrough. To begin with, I want to marry Krobus, or more specifically, have him move in with me. I want to get Lewis's underwear and I want to wear them. I want to collect all the rare crows, hatch a dinosaur egg, and collect these boys right here. I'm really not sure what they are, but I think they're funny and I want them. Unfortunately, I realized there's probably no way that I can ever get this stuff done without selling out to Joja, so another sub-goal of mine will be to purchase all the community development projects. Will I be able to accomplish all of this in 100 days? Honestly, I have no clue, so let's just dive in. I feel like for these sorts of goal-oriented playthroughs, time is precious and every minute counts, which is why for the first 20 minutes I just laid in bed struggling to figure out the controls. And even when I did figure out how to move around, I just could not open this box for the life of me. I was really just whacking at this thing. Eventually, I got the hang of it and I planted my parsnips, and I figured that this probably wasn't enough. And yeah, nope, just still can't get in a door, having a tough time here. But I bought a whole bunch more parsnips because I'm gonna need a lot of money for the goals that I have. After planting them, I spent the rest of the day foraging around town and rifling through the garbage, but I didn't end up finding anything. I did find some spring onions though, which are pretty nice. When I got home, I did a little redecorating, aimlessly wandered around my house for no good reason, and then went to bed, so overall a pretty successful first day. The next day I got my fishing rod, but I was not very good at it. I did not catch a thing, so I decided to go beachcombing instead, and I found my first artifact, this shrivelly starfish. At this point, I was focused on getting as much money as possible because I needed to buy the bus upgrade from Joja. So for the rest of the day, I basically just foraged and then went to bed. And I got level 1 foraging, so that's pretty nice. Early the next morning, just casually chopped down my mailbox, found a lost book, and then donated my first artifact. For the rest of the day, I just fished. That is all I did. I even ended up getting to fishing level 2. On day 4, I watered my parsnips, I found an artifact, and then I tried to steal the upgraded backpack with my fishing rod, but it didn't work, so I just had to buy it. At the moment though, I didn't have enough gold? Dollars? I don't even know the currency of this game. Out of spite, I tried to tear down Pierre's job board, but I ended up just accepting a quest from Willy instead. I spent the whole afternoon just fishing, and I got my first geode. I sold all my fish for the day, and I went to bed. On the morning of day 5, Marnie brought me a cat, which I decided to adopt. I wasn't sure what to name it. I thought Miso was stupid, but then I realized it was actually kinda cute, so I just went with that. All my parsnips grew, so I harvested them and sold them before heading over to open my first geode. I also found this dinosaur tail in the river while I was waiting, so that's pretty nifty. I was super excited about my first geode, hoping to get some iridium or an artifact. Okay, nope, it's a rock. Afterward, planted more parsnips and I went into the mine for the first time. Rusty sword in hand, I committed my first murder. I also found lots of copper and made it all the way to level 7 before heading home. That night I got level 1 farming, which meant I could make my first scarecrow. The morning of day 6, I found my first trash get, which I was very pleased about. Then I donated some new artifacts to the museum and got some cauliflower seeds as a reward. For the rest of day 6, I went mining and I made it all the way to level 10 where I got these snazzy leather boots. On day 7, I started the morning by watering my plants, opening up some geodes, and doing a bit of fishing. For the rest of the day, I made copper bars and cleared up my land. When I came outside on day 8, a travesty had occurred. One of my precious parsnips had been stolen. And instead of doing anything about it, I just went to the mines and I made it to level 11. Because I committed so many murders, I was admitted to the Adventurers Guild, where I upgraded my sword from this stupid rusty one to a wooden one, which, okay. Then I spent the rest of the day fishing in the lake, and I even got a diamond, so wow. Afterward, I headed to bed. That night I got level 1 combat and also level 4 fishing. The next morning, I harvested my parsnips and I sold them. I also finally made a scarecrow to protect my crops, and then I donated some stuff to the museum. A good portion of the day was spent mining, and I also bombed my way into the little dwarf cave. I talked to my little dwarf friend. Oh, Toxu Totten Soy Toxu Totten Saus and Toxu Totten Sweet Op Toxu Tas Oi. Yep, music to my ears. For the rest of the night, I did some fishing, and I made almost $2,000 that day from my parsnips and my fish. Early in the morning on day 10, I went to visit Clint and opened some more geodes, and I got lots more artifacts. Ultimately, I'm trying to donate 60 artifacts so that I can get the key to Krobus's sewer. I also ended up upgrading my pickaxe, cause why not? And that day I went to Willie's shack and I bought the upgraded fiberglass fishing rod, which allows me to use bait and catch fish faster, allegedly. Just gotta put the bait on the rod. Nope, put the bait on the fishing rod. Just put it down and then just attach it right now. Nope, okay. No. I spent the rest of the day fishing and ended up getting this. Neptune's glaive. Neptune's glaive. What even is that? I don't know and I don't care. At level 5 fishing, I decided to become a fisher because crab traps are stupid. I also spent all of day 11 fishing. I'm just trying to grind for that bus upgrade. On the morning of day 12, my pickaxe was finished, so for the rest of the day, I went mining and made it all the way to floor 14. Day 13 was the day of the egg festival. I spent almost all my money on strawberry seeds. I was hoping that strawberries could rake in some big profits so that I could just get to the desert faster. I also lost the stupid egg hunt to stupid Abigail, so I hate her. On day 14, I haphazardly and angrily planted my strawberries. Then I fished for the rest of the day to just try and calm my mind. It's not good to harbor resentment toward people, so, I just gotta find that inner peace. And I ended up getting level 6 fishing, so, The morning of day 15, I sold my parsnips and I donated some more artifacts, like this spoon. And then I mined all the way to level 31 for the rest of the day. That night I got to farming level 2 and I learned the recipe for sprinklers, which I was clearly very excited about. On day 16 I opened some geodes, collected lots of salmon berries, and I also mined to level 40, where I obtained this useless piece of garbage that I would never ever use. And then I just kept adventuring till level 45. I realized that summer was coming up, so I really wanted to begin buttering up Marnie so I could just get Lewis's underpants. I also got this fun drum block, which I placed here, and then I spent the rest of the day fishing, just getting more dollars. On day 18, my cauliflower had grown, so I harvested and I sold them all. This was also the day that I officially sold out to Joja, which was very difficult and ultimately very devastating for me, but I feel like if I hadn't done this, I never would have been able to get to the desert for the rare crow or the dinosaur egg or anything, so it just had to be done. It just had to be done. The morning of day 19, I accepted this quest from Willie and decided to fish all day for profit. I initially fished in the river and I ended up getting another diamond and also a glow ring. As you can see, this bus is not cheap, so I need a whopping $40,000 just to buy it, but at this point it was just my first priority. That was all I wanted to do, was just make money for this bus. My goal for day 20 was to gather the materials to make a silo, so I started off by making some copper bars. I finished the fish quest for Willie, earning me 120 big ones, and then just deforested my farm. So by the end of the day I had everything for the silo except just 2 pieces of clay, which I thought easy peasy, It's gonna be fine, I can just get that tomorrow. And because of this, I spent the entire morning of day 21 just tilling every part of my land, just trying to find clay. And it literally took forever. For some reason, it was like no clay existed on this stupid farm, but I ended up getting the 2 pieces. I bought my silo. I placed it right here next to my house because I thought it looked kind of nice. And right after I bought the silo, I just went to crack open some geodes and ooh, nice, cool, good. I stopped at Marnie's to give her a gift so she'll like me, and then made some more storage chests with the extra wood from the silo. I was very happy on day 22 because it was my first strawberry harvest of the spring. In the afternoon, I made it to level 50 of the mines and got these nice tundra boots. On day 23, I continued to organize my farm. I was out of wood, so I cut down some more trees. I used the wood to make these preserve jars so I can sell my berries for more dollars. Money, money. I spent the night mining and I got to level 57 of the mines. Day 24 was the flower dance, so I bought my second rarecrow and then I stood in the corner, all alone, like a creep, while everyone else had a good time because no one in the town likes me. Except maybe Clint. Clint is pretty chill. We like Clint. When I got home, I put my scarecrow down and then I went to bed. On the morning of day 25, my silo had finished, so I took my scythe and cut down most of the grass on my property. I wanted to wait until I had the silo to do this so that I wouldn't have to buy any food for my dinosaur, and I ended up filling the silo, which is good. Then I spent the rest of the day fishing at the lake and thinking about how worried I was that I wouldn't be able to get a dinosaur egg. They're like super rare, so I decided to do some research. How to best chance get dinosaur egg Stardew Valley. Apparently there's this thing called a burglar ring, and you get it from killing 500 dust sprites, but it doubles the chance of item drops from monsters. So I really wanted to increase my chances as much as I could, and I just started ruthlessly murdering these dust sprites. On day 26, I sold my first batch of jam, and then I harvested my strawberries again. I also donated some artifacts, and I got this whack-looking bear from the museum. I also realized that the drum block that I placed like a while ago was literally just gone. I have no clue where it went. I never even touched it. It just disappeared. For the rest of the night, I continued to kill dust sprites. I also put my bear right next to the cave entrance because I thought it looked kind of nice. At this point, I had only killed 86 of 500 dust sprites, so I had a long way to go. But that night, I got level 5 farming and chose to make my crops worth 10% more. I spent all of day 27 killing dust sprites, and I made it to level 70 of the mines, where I received this equally useless piece of garbage that I would also never ever use. On day 28, I donated more artifacts and got this sloth skeleton, which I really liked, so I put it in front of the museum. I spent the whole rest of the day just fishing for dollars. On day 29, I invested in some blueberries. Now that it was the first day of summer, I was ready to use my sprinklers for the first time, so I would never have to water my plants again. I spent the rest of the day mining, and I got to level 78, so I was just getting closer and closer to the key at the bottom of the mine. The next morning, I realized that I'm a massive idiot and that I only had the basic sprinklers, which only water 4 blocks, which meant that I did indeed have to keep watering all my plants every day, because I'm stupid. I spent the whole rest of the day just fishing to make some more money. On day 31, I got the letter informing me of Lewis's missing underpants. So I continued to bring Marnie gifts in order to get to 2 hearts, and at this point I still only had 1. I got to level 80 in the mines where I acquired these nifty lava boots, and then I spent the rest of the day killing dust sprites. That night I got to level 5 mining, and I chose to have the chance for multiple gems because they are worth dollars and I do indeed want those. On day 32 I fished up this chicken statue. It is funny looking and I like it. That morning I reached 2 hearts with Marnie and I nabbed Lewis's underwear. I had no intention of returning them, but I forgot that to wear them I needed the sewing machine, so I went and donated artifacts and I ended up getting another rare crow, as well as these fancy statues. I fixed up the signs for my storage and I created a shrine for Lewis's underwear. Then I spent the rest of the day looking for a diamond that I needed to complete a quest for the wizard. Just as I was about to give up, I found a diamond, but unfortunately the wizard wasn't awake, so I just decided to take the L and sell it for some money. But when I went to the notice board the next morning, I was just shook, but I begrudgingly accepted the request and I returned to the mines. As soon as I popped out of the elevator, I found not one, but 2 diamonds. And I made $2,250 from 1 diamond. That's 3 times the market price, so that was pretty good. While I was fishing in the ocean, I fished up a super cucumber, which I immediately brought to the blacksmiths. On day 34, I bought a coop for my dinosaur. I wanted to liven up my farm, so I spent the rest of the day just adding paths and fences. On day 35, I fished in front of Willie's shack all day and sold him all the fish so I could get my dollars immediately. I spent the morning of day 36 fishing and sold some more of my jam. I also put this chicken on a sign because I like him. I got to level 85 that night and killed a lot more soot sprites, bringing me to level 5 combat, so now all my attacks deal 10% more damage. The next morning, my chicken coop was finally finished, and I also got 3 iridium from a geode, so it was shaping up to be a good day. While mining, I found a prismatic shard, and I also made it to level 90, where I got the obsidian edge, which is unfortunately better than my Neptune's glove, or glaive, or glive. By day 38, I finally had enough dollars to buy the bus upgrade, so that is exactly what I did. Now that I had access to Calico Desert, I really needed to grind for the skeleton key at the bottom of the mines, so for the rest of the day I just mined until level 95. On day 39, literally all I did was put a grape in the luau pot because I am a good citizen. On day 40, I visited the Calico Desert for the first time. I brought my prismatic shard along and I got myself a galaxy sword. Wow, such speed. Puts my obsidian edge to shame. With my new sword in hand, I continued to venture to the bottom of the mines to get the key. I got to level 100 and I got a star drop, which increased my energy. The taste reminded me of Krobus? Like sewage water? Or like, what does Krobus taste like? I do not know. The next day, I made some refined quartz for I don't know why, no reason. I sold my crops and I did some fishing. While fishing in the river, I got this iridium band from a treasure chest, which is kind of crazy. So I put that bad boy on and I did some more mining to floor 105, which means I only have 15 left to go. On day 42, I sold some more of my jam and I harvested my blueberries as well as my starfruit. After donating some artifacts to the museum, I got this beautiful obsidian vase, which I placed next to Humtiguf? That's what it says. The next day, when I came down to the beach, I found a rainbow shell, which is good because I'll need it for Mr. Cheese quest when I'm unlocking the casino. I was only able to make it to floor 114 in the mines, which was still good progress, and I was getting really close to getting the key. On day 44, I realized I'd been neglecting my Dusty Boy killing responsibilities, and I had only killed 117 out of 500. So I went back to the mines, I quickly made it to floor 120, getting the skeleton key, and this meant that I could now spend all my time killing the soot sprites. On day 45, I donated some artifacts and I earned the Dwarvish Dictionary and this funky statue, which I put right here. Then I went and bought the next rare crow from the dwarf. On day 46, I went mining and I got this strange bun, which I needed to get Forogomon? I also got to farming level 6, which meant I had the sprinklers that actually made it so I did not have to water my plants anymore. On day 47, I upgraded my coop to a big coop, which meant that I can now keep ducks and dinos, in addition to just regular chickens. Afterward, I went to Vincent's house with my strange bun, ready to get my next statue, but I realized that I could not do it until I had 2 hearts of friendship with him. This put a real wrench in my plans, but I begrudgingly gave him gifts for the next couple days, and I just continued to massacre dust sprites. On day 48, I had the genius idea that if I was there when he walked out of his room, I might be able to sneak past him and go inside, so I waited. And nothing happened, so I just went to kill dust sprites instead. At this point, I had 300 left to kill. Early the next morning, I bought a duck from Marnie and I named it Leonard. I named it Leonard. Okay. On day 50, I replaced all my garbage sprinklers with actually good ones. Also, this isn't important, but look how cute Leonard is. He's very adorable. My whole theory about the open door, yet not gonna work. Gonna need to just suck it up and give him gifts. And day 51, just more dust sprite killing. Also level 5 foraging. By day 52, I was growing restless, and I really wanted to wear Lewis's underwear. So I made this recycling machine, and I was determined to make cloth, because that's what I needed to unlock the sewing machine. At this point, I'd killed 337 dust sprites, so over halfway there, but so much death. And so much more death. On day 54, I harvested my blueberries and I obtained the cloth that I needed. At this point, Leonard had grown into a man duck. A muck, if you will. So I could finally make the duck mayonnaise that I needed to get Pinky Lemon. This meant that I basically had all the statues for this goal, which I was really pumped about. Only 100 more dust sprites. I also got, like, a lot of dollars that day. On day 55, I got my duck mayonnaise to retrieve Pinky Lemon. Before that though, I went to use the sewing machine that I had just unlocked. Now I could finally wear Lewis's shorts. I even went to go rub it in his face because it made me feel good about myself. Then I got Pinky Lemon. I decided I wanted a respectable shrine for my secret statues, so I planted some maple seeds. Then I went to Joja and unlocked the greenhouse. And again, just a lot of death happening all around. On day 56, though I was again poor, I went to the traveling merchant and made some questionable purchases. Honestly, the egg was kind of a steal because for $300 less than Marnie would charge, I got an egg to incubate into a chicken. But I really have no excuse for this wallflower pal, I just thought it was kind of dumb, so I wanted it. On the last day of summer, I killed the last 25 dust sprites that I needed to get the burglar ring, and then the guild was closed for the day, so that was unfortunate. On day 57, I planted this rare seed that I bought from the traveling merchant, as well as some pumpkins that I got from the museum. Afterwards, I stopped at Vincent's house and I realized that I could enter his room, which meant I could get Frogmon, the last statue in my collection. I bought some cranberry seeds to plant in my greenhouse because they had a high yield and I could turn them into jelly. I also went back to the Adventurers Guild and got my ring, which meant that I could finally get ready to go to Skull Cavern. And instead of doing that, I fished and added more paths to my farm, which led all the way to the greenhouse. On day 58, I chopped down a bunch of trees on my property so that I could repair the bridge at the beach. I'm not even sure why. Honestly, the other side of the beach doesn't do anything, but I got this piece of coral, so that's pretty nice. While I slept that night, a fairy visited my farm and magically grew all my pumpkins, that was very nice of her. After harvesting my pumpkins, I rearranged my scarecrows because why not? I also started to make excessive amounts of bombs in preparation for visiting Skull Caverns. I really wanted to make sure that I could go deep enough to increase my chances of finding a dinosaur. For the rest of the day, I just went mining. On day 60, I had bad luck, so I did a little bit of everything. I fished for a bit, I mined for a bit, I got a fair amount of ores, which was good because I need a lot of bombs to use in Skull Caverns. On day 61, I realized I had hit a string of unlucky days, so I decided to just say what the heck and upgrade my pickaxe. Also, my chicken hatched, and I named him Fricker. Afterward, I donated some more artifacts, and I got my next rare crow, which I promptly added to the stack in my front yard. On day 62, I did nothing but fish. On day 63, I did a bit more redecorating. For all of day 64, I collected blackberries that I could eat while I was in the mines. Day 65 was the day. I got my pickaxe from Clint in the morning, and then I got on the bus to Calico Desert. I found some iridium fairly easily, which was pretty nice, and I also found a diamond, but I was not here for the gems, I was here for the dinos. And on floor 16, I found one, like just one. And I don't know what the odds are of this, but I was pretty freaked out. First, I hit him with a little bomb, because I was kind of scared of his fire breath. Also, why do they breathe fire? They're dinosaurs. I checked to see if my burglar ring was equipped, and I decided to just go for it. And I got one. I got an egg on the first dinosaur I found during my trip. What even are the odds? I don't know. But I got an egg. On day 66, I opened up some of my geodes and I got iridium and another prismatic shard, so my luck was seeming pretty good. At this point, I just really wanted a horse stable because I was tired of walking around, but I needed to save up some hardwood. On the morning of day 67, I got the sewer key, which meant that I could finally see Krobus. Before heading to the sewer, I put my dinosaur egg in the incubator so that I could hatch my dino. I gave Krobus a gift, and then I hopped on the bus to Calico Desert. I got lots of iridium and made it to level 46 before heading back home. On day 68, I harvested my cranberries for the first time, and I purchased the copper axe upgrade. I also unlocked the minecarts from Joja, just so I could get around faster, and then I planted some more cranberries in the greenhouse. Then I fished for the rest of the day. And that night, I got to level 10 fishing. I chose to get more treasure chests because I think treasure is cool, and I also made back a lot of the dollars that I spent at Joja. I also fished all day on day 69. On day 70, I accepted a quest from Clint to kill a ton of bats because I needed a little bit more money. At this point, I needed to save up for the horse stable and also for wasting at the casino. I picked up my copper axe and then I used it to break down all the hardwood stumps on my farm for the rest of the day. That night, I got level 6 foraging, which unlocked the lightning rod. This was good because I really needed to start the quest for Mr. Chi that unlocked the casino. The next morning, I made a lightning rod and I placed it right here next to my pond, far, far away from my very flammable house. This was also the day of the Stardew Valley Fair, so I carefully prepared my grange in the hopes of winning enough stars for the next rare crow. Lewis was not very pleased with me, but I did get 750 star tokens, which is pretty cool. Then I did a little bit of gambling and got enough tokens to buy the next rare crow. I continued to gamble and got enough tokens to buy the star drop too. I also bought this pot of flowers, which I thought would be nice to add to Lewis's underwear shrine. On day 72, I reorganized my special statue shrine, and then I brought Krobus a gift. Then I went to Robin's and upgraded my house so that I could have access to the kitchen. I spent the rest of the night just killing bats for Clint. On day 73, I harvested my cranberries once more, and I murdered more bats. I spent the entirety of day 74 just killing bats also. When I woke up on day 75, my house upgrade was finished. The first thing I did was reorganize my house and move my bed closer to the door just so I wouldn't die. Then I went and killed more bats, completing the quest and earning 6,000 dollars. That's kind of a lot, especially because I just killed bats. On day 76, I bought the bridge repair to the quarry and then planted some tree seeds outlining the path to the useless fruit cave next to my greenhouse that I literally never use. On the morning of day 77, my dinosaur finally hatched. I named him Lewis, and then I immediately tried to slaughter him. Then I spent the day in Skull Caverns just to make some more money. On day 78, I decided I wanted to do some good for the community, so I accepted a quest to reduce the population of lakefish. After, I opened some geodes and got some iridium, then upgraded my axe again to make a steel axe. After that, I went to the quarry and mined some of the gems in the ore. Once I had stored those at home, I went to Calico Desert and bought the beet seeds that I needed to unlock the casino. At this point, I was getting really nervous about not being able to get the casino because there were only about 4 days left in the fall, and so far there hadn't been any thunderstorms to get a battery pack. So I planted my beets in advance, just in case. Then I went to the mountain and completed the lakefish quest, getting me 1,500 more dollars. On day 80, I started the day off by accidentally using one of my farm totems while I was literally a 2-minute walk away from my house, so that's good. I basically just chopped down trees on my land for the rest of the day to collect more wood. On day 81, with 2 days left in fall, I was getting really nervous about getting the battery pack. I realized that the only way I was gonna get it was either from getting deep enough in Skull Caverns to kill iridium bats, or by getting extremely lucky at the traveling merchant's cart. And I did. I was so happy when I saw that battery. I brought my rare seed to Mr. Cannoli and I got another star drop. Then I brought the battery back to the bus terminal, completing the first quest for Mr. Chi, and then I brought the rainbow shell to the train station for the second quest. I also purchased the panning expansion from Joja, completing the final project. I got my axe back from Clint, and then I continued to collect hardwood for the horse stable. On day 82, I bought some fancy paths from Robin and I spruced up my farm a little bit. I even added some texturing to my secret statue shrine, and a little path leading up to the fruit cave, which I still never use. The night of day 82 was the Spirits Eve festival, so I bought the next rare crow and I got the golden pumpkin from the spooky maze. Then I went home because I am a very bad citizen of Pelican Town and I do not like talking to the villagers. On the morning of day 83, I sold my fish to Willie to get $10,000 that I needed for the horse stable. On day 84, I got another dinosaur egg, and I accidentally made it into mayonnaise instead of giving it to the museum, so that's a big L. I also walked into a big Joja surprise party for me, which I think officially marks the completion of my sellout to Joja. I even got a vending machine. I am the Joja MVP. Today was the first day of winter, which meant that it was Krobus' birthday. At this point, I only had 6 hearts with Krobus, so I was getting a little nervous that I wouldn't be able to get him to move in time. After, I went to Pierre's and I bought some speed grow for my beets so that I could get to the casino faster. I also realized that in order to have Krobus move into my house, I needed 200 Void Essence to buy a Void Ghost Pendant. I knew that the green snaky boys drop a lot of Void Essence, so I went back to Skull Caverns to get some. While I was hunting these guys, I also found this treasure room where I got this blue cowboy hat. I like this hat. Isn't it actually? It's actually so sick. Like, yeehaw. On day 85, my horse stable had finished. I named my horse Nala, and then I embarked on the long journey to my greenhouse. My beets still hadn't grown, so I was getting more and more anxious about getting to the casino and being able to gamble for enough tokens to buy the rare crow. In a moment of weakness, I sold all 14 of my diamonds for cash, and for the rest of the day I battled the green snaky boys in Skull Caverns. That night I made almost $14,000, which is good because I needed it to fuel my impending gambling problem. On day 86, my beets had finished, so I harvested them and plopped them into Lewis's fridge. Then I went to the Calico Desert and offered the solar essence to the dragon skeleton. Unfortunately, Mr. Chi had hidden the club card right next to my house, so I decided to just go to the casino later and spend the night mining in Skull Cavern. Also, I found that the desert merchant sells a magic cowboy hat that changes colors. I really want this cowboy hat. On day 87, I retrieved the club card and I immediately headed to the casino. I spent an entire real-time day just sitting in front of the blackjack table and playing Calico Spin until I had gotten the 10,000 coins I needed for the alien rare crow. I didn't want to waste the trip to Calico Desert, so I just spent the rest of the night mining. On day 88, I added my alien scarecrow to my collection. I also entered the fruit cave for the first time, which was pretty momentous. I bought a void egg from Krobus, which I put in the incubator, and then Willie showed me his decrepit boat, which would take like 100 batteries, 10,000 hardwood, and 500 iridium to repair, so I just walked away from that. For the rest of the day, I fished trash out of the pond on my farm to appease Linus, but when I tried to bring it to the recycling bin for him, the wizard asked me to get some medallion from Krobus, and I kind of just ignored him and put the garbage in the recycling bin anyway and just went to bed. But the next day, I talked to Krobus and found this weird sewer bug place. I don't even know what this is, but I retrieved the Dark Talisman. Then I got zip-zoomed away to another dimension with a goblin boy in it. After doing some reading in the library, I realized I had to make void mayonnaise to get past him. I think the goal was to get the wizard's magic ink back, but I don't really know what that does, so I just kind of put that on the back burner for now. Before I went to bed, I put some tree fertilizer on my saplings, and I started clearing the forest on the other side of the greenhouse. I continued to clear this area on the morning of day 90, and I added some paths and started to construct a little tree farm before I visited Krobus. I realized at this point that I probably wouldn't get enough hearts for Krobus to move in with me by the end of the 100 days, so I just worked on my farm for the rest of the night to make myself feel better. Day 91 was the day of the fishing festival. I bought the last rare crow and also a cute little Christmas tree, and I won the competition, but the prizes were just like stupid fish tackles that I would never use. When I got home, I added the snowman scarecrow to my collection. I also found this spooky Krobus looking guy and stole his magnifying glass. Early on the morning of day 92, I set up my Christmas tree in my living room, which I thought looked really nice. Then I got a letter from the ZC Rare Crow Society giving me a recipe for a deluxe scarecrow, and I was so excited I just crafted it immediately and just added it to my collection. For the rest of the day, I just went mining. On day 93, I fished for the entire morning and then purchased a shed, which I would soon make into my storage shed. I wanted to have a more organized storage system because I was kind of tired of my 3-chest system. Then I put some tree fertilizer on the rest of my saplings and started to organize my rare crows. I ended up making this elaborate design, which I thought looked kind of cool. And then the next day I hated it, so I tore it apart and I added new pathing. That morning, my void chicken also hatched and I named him Lancelot. Again, I spent the rest of the day mining because I wasn't sure what else to do. And that night I reached level 10 combat, so now I deal 15% more damage. When I woke up on day 95, my shed was done, so I spent the entire day just organizing all my items and making a new storage system. Also, because I'm a stupid idiot, I wanted to have a special warp totem chest, but when I tried to put a picture of a warp totem on a sign, I ended up teleporting to the mountains, which was very stupid and very inconvenient. So then I ran all the way back just to finish my storage system. But when I did finish it, I thought it looked pretty good. On day 96, I used my kitchen for the first time and made some pale broth. And then I spent the rest of the day in Skull Caverns killing green snaky boys. Also that night, I got to level 10 mining, so now the chance of finding geodes is doubled. On day 97, I'd pretty much accepted the fact that Krobus was not moving in with me. I continued to give him gifts every day and talk to him, so maybe that's a 200 days kind of goal, but he was kind of a lost cause at this point. Again, I spent the rest of the night in Skull Caverns and I got another prismatic shard, and also a decent amount of iridium. On day 98, I made some void mayonnaise, harvested my cranberries for the last time, and then bribed the goblin to let me into the witch hut where I stole the wizard's magic ink. When I brought it back to him, it unlocked a ton of expensive buildings like the Junimo hut and the obelisks, which would probably also be a 200-day sort of goal. Afterwards, I went to the night market where I got a free coffee and 2 stone frog statues which I put in front of my storage shed. I also finished up my rare crow shrine that night, which I think ended up looking pretty good. I got to level 9 farming, which means that I unlocked the seed maker. So on the morning of day 99, I made 3 seed makers, but when I put my starfruit in, I only got 1 seed back, which was kind of depressing, but that's fine, I guess. I changed the flooring in the storage room, and then I bought 2 stone parrots from the night market. I also watched the Stupid Mermaid show, which took up way too much of my time, and then just punched in the magic code and got this pearl. When I got home that night, I made a little shrine with the pearl on it, put the parrot statues in my chicken coop to guard over their brethren, and then stood by the fire with my crab cakes on my last night. I wanted to do something really special for my last day, and I thought that the most fitting thing would be to prepare my house for Krobus' arrival. So, first thing in the morning, I headed to Pierre's and oh my god, it's Wednesday. So, first thing in the morning, I headed to Joja and I bought this dark, spooky flooring. I also bought this literal pile of rocks from the dwarf. So first things first, I used my new flooring and then I removed the window because Krobus hates natural sunlight. Then I placed my bird statues in the kitchen just to spruce it up. Afterwards, I gambled for hours at the casino and bought some more furniture. I couldn't find any wallpaper anywhere, so I just put some paintings on the wall, and I know Krobus is gonna hate my wallflower pal, but I just do not have the heart to take it down. It's one of my favorite possessions. That night, I bought an absurd amount of statues and torches from the night market and just scattered them around my house. I placed down some stone walkways to remind him of the sewers, and also to cover up the absence of spooky flooring. Okay, I really just went ham with the statues, I don't know why. As a final touch, I put up these skeleton signs just to show him I'm not messing around, this is a seriously spooky place. Then I was about to die, so I went to bed, and oh god, this place looked so much better at night. This is horrendous, but this is the final product. Anyway, I've really enjoyed playing these past 100 days, and I feel like I accomplished a lot of things in the small amount of time that I had. I'm also pretty upset that I didn't have enough time to marry Krobus, but I'm sure with a house this spooky, he'll definitely want to move in now. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it. If you want to see another 100 days or other videos like this, then feel free to subscribe. Bye! Oh my god. What is this? Oh no. Oh my god. Oh, I hate that. I hate that. I hate that thing. Why is he just sitting there?